Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here. As I'm sure you've noticed, because it's probably all over the different YouTube channels, I wanted to just kind of come on and go through all of the Chaos Dwarf goodies that we have to show since the embargo for this is up. Obviously I can't show any campaign stuff yet. I can only show kind of like battle footage. So I just kind of wanted to go through and talk about the Chaos Dwarf roster and like all the different units and some things that I've noticed that I think are particularly cool or interesting. I don't think that I'm going to be the best channel for this. It's just, you know, participating in what's going on. I would much more highly recommend checking out channels like Turin, Enticity, Zerkovich, oh gosh, my brain, Milk and Cookies Total War, like a lot of those content creators who really like getting into the nitty gritty, of battle play. I think campaign is kind of my happy place, but I did want to go ahead and just do this because, you know, might as well, and hopefully you'll see some really cool things. And, you know, I may have what I would consider a significantly less educated opinion when it comes to battles, but I still have a fair amount of knowledge, and I do like to keep tabs on everything. So real quick, just wanted to show some Chaos Dwarf stuff. I'll also end this with a battle I fought against Enticity that ended up being really fun, where we played a domination game, and I played the Chaos Dwarfs versus his Bretonnia. So, looking up here, just want to show all the sub-factions real quick. So you've got the Disciples of Hashut, the War Host of Zar, the Servants of the Conclave, the Overlords of Taur'ruk, the Chaos Dwarf Rebels, because Chaos Dwarfs have so few factions that they get the Rebel faction colors, and the Legion of Asgore. So there are 5 main factions and then the Rebel faction color scheme, just so you know, you have lots of variety. And let's go ahead and go through the roster. So starting with characters, we've got the Chaos Dwarf Overseer, who you can see kind of all of his stats and stuff here, as far as what he's able to bring to the table. As they kind of showed, you could ride on a Great Taurus or a Lamassu. I do want to point out a couple of really cool things about these critters. So the Great Taurus has, it's a pretty standard creature, but it brings a lot of the really awesome things about the Chaos Dwarfs to the fore. Most notably the Blazing Body, which is a rule that they have pretty popular in their roster. So Blazing Body, as you can see here, when you get into close combat, you spend enough time in combat, your melee damage reflection goes up and your physical resistance goes up. And that melee damage reflection is not to be sneezed at. A lot of the Chaos Dwarf creatures that have Blazing Body, the Kadai, and especially the characters mounted on the big fire bulls, are tough enough that they can get that up to a pretty high number. And by doing so, they're actually pretty dangerous versus units because they bounce back a lot of that damage. Some other new rules, there's the Contempt rule, which Contempt is basically like, it's like the opposite of Expendable. So Contempt is you only care about other units fleeing or what have you, if they also have Contempt. So in the Chaos Dwarf roster, you have 3 different kind of leadership tiers. The Chaos Dwarf units all have the actual Contempt rule. The Hobgoblin units do not have any... they don't have Contempt or Expendable, and then your Laborers have Expendable. The other stuff that the Overseer brings to the table, he's kind of, you know, just a really solid stat line. He's got good armor piercing values at 130 to at 320 AP to 130, but he comes with a nice oh, there we go. He comes with a, oh, I think I still had the bull up. So it's 260, 170 actually, but he does come with silver shields, which is very, very nice. Most dwarfs, I believe, now have silver shields instead of bronze, making them a bit more reliable when it comes to blocking against damage. You can see not very fast, but solid stats overall. Comes with Foe Seeker and Standard Die. He also has an optional item, which is the Black Gem of Nar, and this is a true double-edged sword. The Black Gem of Nar is a enchanted item, I believe, that makes it where your melee attack goes to 0, but you're also completely invulnerable to damage for 13 seconds. I don't think it's necessarily super useful on a melee character, because it basically just makes it where he's, you know, if you're really getting focused down, it makes you immune to damage for a hot minute, but I think it tends to be much better in campaign, at least on a sorcerer character, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm immune to damage, and I cannot deal melee damage, but I can still cast spells. So it can be really good for that. You got Standard Dire Foeseeker. We already looked at the Great Taurus, which gives him a pretty nice stat bonus, gives him flaming damage and some solid weapon strength. Also gives him the ability to fly. When looking at his stats on foot, all Chaos Dwarfs have 25% fire resistance. The Chaos Dwarfs do not have magic resist. They exchanged their magic resist for fire resist. So if you can, you don't want to take fire damage against them. Because they're going to reduce quite a bit of it, but magic damage is quite good against Chaos Dwarves, unless you get the Lammasu, which is a very, very cool creature. So the Lammasu grants you magical attacks instead of fire attacks. You don't get as good of stats armor piercing wise as you would on the Great Taurus. You also have less health, but you have a little bit better speed and like defenses and stuff. You also get 2 bound spells. You get 1 use of Enfeebling Foe, and you get 1 use of the Withering. Then when you scroll down, you have access to a very, very, very cool new ability. So this is Sorceress Miasma. Sorceress Miasma is a 20-meter AoE that negates magic weapons, which is very, very, very strong. It's a small area of effect, but if you can play your cards right with this ability, it makes physical resistance basically the equivalent of a ward save, which is amazing because there's plenty of magic attacks in the game, but being able to negate magic attacks allows those units you have that do have proper defenses significantly tougher. Moving on, we have Zhatan the Black, who is your cheapest of the legendary lords. He's actually a pretty solid character. Comes with a lot of really cool abilities and items. He has a very, very trusty stat line. He also is, if you remove everything from him, he gets very cheap at 1100 despite having a pretty sexy stat line. But he does have some very powerful abilities. First, he has Boundless Cruelty. So Boundless Cruelty is the more enemies that are around you, the more you nuke their leadership. So it's a permanent passive that encourages you to get Zhatan into the thick of it, so that he can start really hurting enemy leadership, which makes him very, very solid for getting into those big melee scraps. And if you put him on a big terror causer like the Lammasu or the Great Taurus, it combos even further, allowing him to be a very nasty threat against the other races. Because he can just jump in there and, you know, he's dealing fear, and then he's more likely to terror out enemies if he gets overly surrounded. So, you know, you really can't go wrong with that. This ability is insanely good as long as you're good at utilizing it at the right time. It's a 2-use snare ability. Sadistic Snare completely immobilizes the target and also lowers melee defense by 24. And it lasts for 33 freaking seconds. It's not as good if he's on foot because it only has a 20-meter range, but it is amazing when he's on a mount, so that he can get properly positioned. This baby is disgusting, especially if you use it and you've got enough ranged units to really take advantage of it. Because if you can get a big old fat volley of fire glaives in rifles into a unit that's stuck, they're just dead. Like there is no surviving that. You are deceased. And it can target anything. That's also the super nice thing. It's not character specific. It's not unit specific. It's just anything. Zhatan has a lot of amazing utility because of these abilities. As far as his items go, he has all 3 of his campaign items in here. You have the Obsidian Axe, which is that the longer Zhatan is, the more kills Zhatan deals in melee, the higher his melee attack gets, and the more his armor piercing goes up. If you are on, I believe, foot, it's not as great because like your armor piercing isn't as high. I think if you're gonna bother with the Obsidian Axe, you really want to ride a Great Taurus so that the majority of your damage is armor piercing. And then that, because it's percentage based, so that will come in much bigger handy. But it is based on kills, so like if you're gonna take this, you really want to have it on a Great Taurus and you want to be highly aggressive. Then you have the Chaos Rune Shield, which is an extremely powerful item. especially against factions that rely very heavily on contact effects, because it just gives a flat AoE immune to contact effects buff, which is insane. So it has a 35 meter range, it's a perma passive, and it makes you immune to things like poison or, any of the other contact effects, which, poison, burnt, discourage, any of that other stuff, which is pretty freaking crazy. Not good against every enemy, but if you're gonna be fighting like lizardmen, you can feel pretty confident that there's gonna be lots of poison, so this could be a really, really solid way to help mitigate a lot of that. And then you have the Armor of Gazrak. The Armor of Gazrak, I think, is pretty solid. Probably really no matter what build you're running. I would say it's a must-have. It is it's kind of weird. It's an active ability that gets stronger based on the amount of damage you've taken. So I'm not 100. I'll probably have to test it here in a little while. I can't remember if it's you activate it and then it gives you damage resistance based on how much damage you take while it's activated, or if it's as you take more damage, it just gets better. And then when you activate it, you get whatever reward you've built up at that point. I believe it's the second one, but it lasts for a pretty long time, 48 seconds, and can give you up to a 30% additional ward save, which is really, really solid. Moving on, we've got the Chaos Sorcerer-Prophet. There are 4 versions. You got Lore of Fire, Lore of Hatchet, Lore of Metal, Lore of Death. I will do a showcase on all the spells and stuff tomorrow. I'm not going to bother with it today. I'm sure there's going to be somewhere else you can find that. When embargoes go down, there are some content creators like me that are like, oh, I'll just put out something every day. And there are others that just drop everything. So you can find it out there. But if you want to get my thoughts, come back tomorrow. You can see they have access to the wizards. So the Sorcerer-Prophet and the Daemonsmith have access to the Bale Taurus, which is the big spooky bull. It is the super powerful one. It also brings flaming breath into the situation. So it has a decent armor piercing and explosive shooting attack that can only be used if it's flying and out of combat. It is not super accurate against single targets, but it hits pretty hard. It's not as good as Dragon Breath, but it is still a solid attack. The other stuff that they bring to the table, you have Infernal Engineer. Infernal Engineer is actually a pretty interesting buff. So it's a unique buff in that it gives you something and a certain kind of unit something, but you both get different buffs. So if you are within 35 meters of a missile attack unit, such as war machines or artillery, you make it, I believe it has to be a war machine. You make them or you have to be near a war machine, and then it affects everyone within range or something like that. But it gives allies plus 20 reload skills, so they shoot faster, and it gives you higher missile resistance, which is really cool. This is a really exciting type of buff to see. I personally hope we see a lot more of this kind, where you get unique interactions between specific units. Like, if I could make a request, I would love to see Spawnkin introduced on Crocscores and Skinks, where if you have Crocscores and Skinks near one another, they get little buffs. So like the Skinks get bonus leadership when they're near the Crocscores, and the Crocscores get like higher melee defense or melee attack, which is kind of similar to how they work on tabletop, which is super duper cool. Then of course you have your different lores. As far as your items go, you have the Chalice of Blood and Darkness, which is a very, very, very good item. So it does give you healing if there is an enemy spell cast within range. So basically you have a 35-meter bubble around you, and if you manage to get within range of an enemy caster when they unleash magic, you heal a ton of health. 1.6% is huge. Like, most forms of regeneration are like 0.1 or 0.2%. So this is like, well over 10 times better. Granted, it has very specific activations, so you do need to be very careful about how you maneuver your character to really take advantage of it, but I suspect the Sorcerer-Prophet is going to be a very popular take because they come with that kind of regeneration. Then you have the Vial of Hatchet. This item's okay. It's kind of expensive considering it's a one use only, but it is a one use only little vial that you could throw at somebody within 50 meters. And if you do, you lower their armor by 40 and you give them 60% additional weakness to fire, which the vast majority of Chaos Dwarf weapons are fire. All of their ranged weapons are fire. So it can be useful, but I'm not sure of the math on when it comes to figuring out how strong those percentages are. And once again, I will go over the lore of fire has I can confirm, you might have noticed in some of the videos, but the lore of fire has had a glow up, so the spells have been changed a little bit. Some of them flame storm and I think piercing bolts of burning act a little different. Like flame storm is notably different than it used to be. And then the rest of the spells just got like a really nice tune-up on their effect. And of course, you've got the lore of Hashit proper, which I will go over all the spells and showing them off tomorrow. It is a very, very solid lore of magic. Next, we've got Drazhoath the Ashen. I'm going to pronounce his name different every time, and there's nothing you can do about it. You'll just have to suffer knowing that. You can see he's pretty decent on foot, very heavily armored, decent melee attack, very high melee defense, got a good anti-infantry bonus. If you put him up on Cinder Breath, he loses the anti-infantry but gains significant armor piercing, and he trades out a lot of defense for offense. So he does get a lot more health, but his armor goes down quite a bit. His melee defense drops a ton, but his melee attack and speed are just way higher. Cinder Breath is a very, very powerful mount. You also have Dark Renown. Dark Renown is a permanent AoE within 35 meters of Drazhoath that gives +8 melee attack to all contempt units within 35 meters. That, of course, includes Drazhoath himself, so he gives himself more melee attack. But if you're going to have him like flying in or around your army a bunch and you're planning on running a lot of Chaos Dwarf units, like the actual Chaos Dwarfs, this is a very strong ability. If you're not going to run a lot of units with Contempt, especially if they're going to not be melee focused, so if you're relying more on like Hobgoblins or Laborers to be your front line, definitely not worth having. But if you're going to be going lots of Warriors or Infernal Guard or whatever, then it can definitely be quite good. He also has 3 items. So you have the Hellshard Amulet, which is a beautiful item. It is so strong. It gives you +20 melee damage reflection and +10 damage resistance so long as you are in close combat. So if you stack that with the Blazing Body that you get from Cinder Breath, you are able to get up to 45 melee damage reflection, which is pretty significant. It actually helped me quite a bit in my battle versus Enticity that I'll show you in a little bit, kind of at the end of this. Next, you have the Demon Spike Crucible. Very strong item, gives you spell mastery up to 20%, and it increases with every kill you make. So it's kind of like a build. It's kind of like the Chaos War Shrine, but isolated to just you. It's very easy to get an insane amount of kills on Drazhoath, especially if he's on Cinder Breath. Between your breath attack, just your melee attacks, and your spells, especially like the Flames of Asgore and the Hellhammer. Those spells are insanely strong and hit like an absolute truck. Then you have the Graven Scepter, which is very, very good if you're on Cinder Breath. It's kind of if you're on foot, but it gives you magic attacks for a little bit, and it also increases all damage types by 25% and +24 melee attack. So very good character. You can also give him Infernal Engineer if you want. He also has the Lore of Hashit lore attribute, which whenever you cast a spell deals damage per second to everyone around you, which is really, really nice if you're casting a lot of cheap spells in the midst of the army. The Lore of Hashit is pretty expensive. The 2 cheapest spells, Burning Wrath and Dark Subjugation, are 6 Winds of Magic. But like the really good ones, Flames of Asgore and Hellhammer, are very pricey, but they hit hard. And once again, I'll do some cool spell stuff tomorrow. Last but certainly not least is Astragoth Ironhand. So you can see he has a mix of the Lore of Fire and the Lore of Hashit. He also has both of their passives. He then has Mechanical Overdrive, which is that the more kills you make with Astragoth, the more terrifying he gets in close combat, and his base damage goes up. Not his armor piercing, but his base damage, so it's not quite as strong. He also has 2 items. You have the Stone Mantle, which is as you take damage throughout the battle, you get slower. However, your physical resistance goes up. So you do get tankier and tankier, and he is a tanky boy at 130 armor, 50 melee defense, and over 7,000 health. Like he's pretty difficult to bring down hard. He also has wall breaker, which is hilarious, and immune to psych and some other goodies. You do then have the Black Hammer of Hashut. This is a pretty okay buff. It gives you flammable on your attacks, so all of your personal attacks and pretty much everything in your army that deals fire damage will deal 20% bonus damage, and it also increases both of your damage types by 50%. So Astragoth is a little more straightforward, but still fun. Looking at the heroes, we have the Daemonsmith Sorcerer, who has all 4 Lords of Magic. They also have the Reforge ability. Reforge can be quite nice, depending on how you build your army. Reforge gives you a healing ability you can use twice per battle. It can only be used on units that are Hellforged, which the only units that have the Hellforge passive are the Kadai and all of the War Machines. So like the Centaurs do not have it. None of the Chaos Dwarfs have it. So if you're going to be running Kadai, I think it's really, really great. Or if you're going to be running like an Iron Demon, any of the trains, then Reforge can be very, very solid. You see it has all 3 mount options. For items, they have the Spellwrought Scepter, which can be very, very good if utilized well with a Lore of Magic to like really try and oppress someone by spamming a particular series of spells on them, like Spirit Leech or what have you. But it lowers all of your cooldowns by 30, which is super nice. It looks like you can target somebody else with it because it has a 100 meter range, so that is worth keeping in mind. Could use it on one of your like your lord or what have you. Then there's the Demon Flask of Ashak, which is a vortex ability that you unleash that deals pretty decent armor. It doesn't deal a ton of damage, but it is armor piercing damage. The big thing is that it applies the blinded effect. So it causes everyone that is hit by it to lose 16 melee attack for 10 seconds, which is pretty cool. Beyond that, we have the Bull Centaur Taur'ruk, and the Bull Centaur Taur'ruk can come with Guardian, Foe Seeker, Heroic Killing Blow. They also are able to have the Talisman of Obsidian, which, just like the Lamasu, gets rid of magic damage. So if you combo that with Guardian, very, very strong, because they're the exact same range. So if any units within that radius, so if anyone tries to melee your Bull Centaur Taur'ruk or a character he's defending, well, actually, because the Guardian wouldn't affect him, it would affect the other characters, but it basically makes it where his Guardian cannot be negated. You know, they can't be like, we've got magic attacks, so your Guardian's useless. No sir, that's what this is for. So a very, very good item if you're wanting to use him defensively like that. You then have the Dark Mace, which is another pretty very solid defensive item. It has a 35 meter radius, lasts for 30 seconds. You slap this puppy on and it reduces the armor by 30, but it also drains vigor, which is super nasty. So Bull Centaur is a very, very solid character. He's got a big old fat great weapon. So he is able to deal some pretty significant damage. He also has 30 bonus versus large, pretty heavy armor piercing at 320, very solid stat line, and a lot of health, so they can definitely take some damage. The Infernal Castellan is kind of like your engineer focused character, though he's also not by any means a slouch in close combat. He has the Dig In ability, which is a passive ability where if he stands still for 25 seconds, he will gain 40% bonus range, 15% extra missile resistance, and expert charge defense. So if you kind of use him as a rifleman, he becomes much better at trading with enemy shooters, and also is going to hold his ground quite nicely if charged by something, which is pretty nice. He's also got Deadly Onslaught. You can get the Life Bane Blade, which is a beautiful item that just gives you flat regeneration in combat. So you get 0.1% healing per second so long as you're fighting, which is awesome. You can also have the Breath of Hatred, which is a bound spell that you slap on all allies within range, and it gives them flaming attacks, sundering armor attacks, and 24 melee attack. Very, very nice, powerful buff. The only downside to the Infernal Castellan is that he can't be mounted on anything, so that 32 speed, you just kind of have to live with it and try to make the best use of it. So he's not as maneuverable as the others, but he does have some very strong items to make up for it. And he has a Fire Glaive as his weapon. So he's got 180 range, very solid armor piercing with 240 of his damage being AP. He's got fire shots, and he's no slouch in close combat, having that +5 bonus versus large, and also very high armor piercing because he functionally wields a halberd. Good melee attack, good melee defense for a hero, and 120 armor, so you know he's tanky. Then there's Gorduz. Gorduz Backstabber, who is insanely powerful because he's insanely cheap. If you take him completely naked, he comes in at only 350, being a very cheap hero, but he has some really interesting abilities. You can mount him on a giant wolf. If you do so, it gives him more health, significantly higher speed, and a bit better charge bonus. But as far as what he really brings to the table, he has Bronze Shield, pretty solid stat line. He also has the Malign Authority passive, which is on all of the hobgoblins and laborers. And Malign Authority just means that if there is a Chaos Dwarf within 55 meters, that the unit with Malign Authority gets bonus leadership. As far as his other abilities, he has the Dagger of Malice as his item. Dagger of Malice you pop when you really need to chew somebody up and spit them out. It bumps your melee attack up to 90, gives you 100% bonus damage, so it just flat out nearly doubles your damage because he's mostly non-AP. So it gives you an extra 280 base damage, and it also gives you the poison passive. So this is really good for popping to assassinate a character or really try and tear a unit apart. And then he has the Crooked Dice ability, which is very, very solid. So Crooked Dice is an active ability you can pop that when it goes off, the game rolls you a d6, and you get one of those 3 buffs for 90 seconds. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, you get 60 armor. If you roll a 3 or 4, you get 40% physical resistance. And if you roll a 5 or a 6, you get 40% damage resistance. So really, that's a long time to have a 40% ward save if you get really lucky. But it's really good no matter what, and it's a very solid ability. Slippery, pretty standard, makes you faster, gives you more melee defense. And then Lucky Get is also pretty nice. So Lucky Get has basically you just get a big heal when you're almost dead. So once you get down to less than 25% health points, you get a there is a 5-second cast time for feeling lucky, and then when it goes off, you heal 0.4% of your health for 30 seconds. So it takes 5 seconds to go off, and then you get 30 seconds of healing. So it's a very, very big boy heal, though obviously you do have to get kind of close to dying for it to go off, and you know, it's very likely you'll probably be broken at that point or close to breaking, so you do want to be careful. But Crooked Dice is legit amazing. Moving on to actual units, we can just sort of fly through these. So you got your Goblin Laborers, absolutely terrible stat line, but they're a flat out meat shield with 9k health and just terrible stats, but they are expendable, so who cares, right? You have your Orc Laborers, who have even more health at over 10,000, and they at least do have armor piercing attacks because they functionally have great weapons. Once again, not a very good unit, but they can kind of chew through some like low tiered armor enemies. You've got your Hobgoblin Cutthroats. They have the Backstabber's passive. All Hobgoblins have this, except for I think the Wolf Riders have something different. But Backstabbers gives you bonus damage if you are attacking a unit while you have higher than 50% health. So as long as your guys feel like they're doing great and they don't have to worry about potentially losing, they think they have the advantage, they fight all the harder. And you know, very kind of stat line, but they're cheap. They're your basic infantry. Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits, these guys are actually very, very good. So they have precursor missiles. They only have 2 volleys, but they throw poison daggers that deal pretty okay damage, but they can really surprise the hell out of a unit because they have Vanguard, Follow While Moving, and Stalk. So it's very easy for them to sneak up on an enemy ranged unit or enemy light cavalry and just mow them down with a fat shooting attack before they run into melee and cut them up. Very little armor. Stat line's not great, but they do have poison attacks, and they do have an anti-infantry bonus of 7. So they are solid if you can get them into the back line, because they can really chew people up, especially if they don't have armor. Very, very good unit, mostly because they're stealth, so you can really take advantage of having them hiding on the battlefield. Chaos Dwarf Warriors, silver shields, pretty good armor at 85, decent melee defense, charge defense versus large, and here you can see the 15% fire resist, which is standard for all Chaos Dwarfs. Okay weapon strength, you know, kind of a hold the line type unit. Chaos Dwarf, great weapons, you know, same thing, just they have significantly higher AP. And their melee defense suffers a little bit, but you know, bonus damage. Then you have the first of the Regiment of Renown, the Blazing Beards of Bazrak. These lads have fire attacks, and they also have they have grenades. So they have 2 volleys worth of grenades. The grenades hurt a ton because they're pretty significantly armor piercing and have good armor piercing explosions. They also have frenzy, so as long as their leadership is good, they have pretty gnarly stats. Coming in there with 48 melee attack when that's the case, and they hit a little bit harder, but they're a very, very solid early unit, because you know they throw the grenades and then they've got all the bonus stats while they're frenzied. Next, we get into the medium tier infantry, which are the the warriors kind of medium tier, the slightly high tier. So you got the Infernal Guard, which are your big boys. They have slightly higher fire resist at 25%, 100 armor, silver shields, 32 melee attack, 56 melee defense, and notably higher weapon strength, though still mostly base. Then your great weapons, which are very, very similar to how the Chaos Dwarf great weapons compare, you know, higher armor piercing, etc. Then you got your Infernal Guard, which are your elite infantry unit. The Infernal Guard have 125 armor with silver shields. They also have magical and flaming attacks in close combat with 42 melee attacks, 64 melee defense. They also have 2 volleys of grenades, so they're very, very similar to Ironbreakers. Their grenades also have the very high armor piercing, and they're mostly base damage, but they are a very tough unit. Who will hold the line for a long time with that 85 leadership, and they're extremely high fire resistance, and they're super badass looking. Then you have the last melee infantry regiment of renown, the Immortals. So the Immortals are Infernal Ironsworn with dual axes. So just like the regular Infernal Ironsworn, they have over 10,000 health, big tanky boys, 125 armor. Obviously they don't have shields, but they do have significantly higher, decently higher melee attack at 46, only 50 melee defense, but they do make up for it with a 14 bonus versus infantry and pretty solid damage, split 2/3 way base damage versus AP. They also have the Undying Will passive, so as long as their hit points are above 75%, they cannot die, and their vigor is always topped off. So they functionally have perfect vigor and or cannot be killed by any sort of like cannonball or other notable single target shot, so long as they're above 75% health. So they're very similar to Grimgor's The Immortals banner, except for they're a full-on regiment of renown. Moving on to ranged infantry, we have Hobgoblin Archers, who you can see also have the Backstabbers for the bonus damage. They do have fire arrows, because just fire, everywhere fire. Pretty garbage stat line overall, but you know, they're kind of there just to provide you with mass shooting. You then have the Blunderbuss. The Blunderbuss hurts really bad. So these guys do come with shields, so they're kind of like Quarrelers and Thunderers. They have shields and axes. They have silver shields, 85 armor, pretty fine melee stats, and they can beat up a lot of like light cavalry pretty reliably. A decent amount of ammo at 30, not a ton of range, only 90 range, but as you can see, the armor piercing on this is insane. It's 13 AP damage, but you shoot 3 projectiles per volley. They will delete just about anything. But they also are very fond of friendly fire. You do need to be very careful what you aim at. They do aim in a straight line like most forms of shooting guns, as far as like trying to like target an enemy for like block line of sight. But when they fire, they will hit everything in that general direction. I kill a lot of my own guys frequently. The next regiment of renown are the Granite Guard. So the Granite Guard have the Dig In ability, which is very strong on a Blunderbuss unit. If they hold still for 25 seconds, they get 40% bonus range, 15% missile resistance, and expert charge defense, which is fantastic. Also, to make things even more terrifying, they're a Blunderbuss unit with freaking suppression. So if they get off a volley, they slow you down by 30% so that they can build up to shoot you with another armor-piercing volley. They also have very good melee stats, and they have armor-piercing weapons in close combat because they are the real deal. Because they are functionally Infernal Guard with blunderbusses, and they wear Infernal Guard armor. And that's like the whole gimmick, is that instead of Chaos Dwarf Warriors with blunderbusses, they are Infernal Guard with blunderbusses. Then you have the Fireglaves. The Fireglaves are probably the best hybrid shooting unit in the game. And I do not say that lightly. These lads will destroy just about any cavalry unit in melee. They do not give a damn. They will rip you to pieces, and their shooting attacks really fucking hurt. So they have 100 armor, solid leadership, 30 melee attack with flames, 42 melee defense. They do wield halberds because their guns are also halberds. So they have 25 armor piercing damage and a 5 bonus versus large. They have 30 ammo, 145 range, so really solid handgun range, and then they deal significant flaming armor piercing damage. I cannot express how badly these lads will destroy your face if you try and charge them head on. I don't care what your unit is, you will not beat them with a head on charge. Moving on to Cavalry and Chariots, we have the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. So the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, they do not have Backstabbers because they're not regular Hobgoblins. They are true Hobgoblins. They instead have Cowardly Despoilers. And that is, if you are attacking a unit in the rear or flank, you get 25% bonus damage. So they really reward you for flanking maneuvers. They've got bronze shields, very fast at 92 speed. Pretty meh stats, but a decent charge bonus and pretty okay damage. Very, very good and very cheap. They perform quite reliably. Next, you've got your Bull Centaurs. So first are the Bull Centaur renders with shields. They have silver shields, very solid stat lines, pretty decently quick, 62 speed, 36 melee attack, 48 melee defense, and they have 100. And despite being axe and shield, they still have vastly majority armor piercing damage. At 80 versus 34, good charge bonus, and they cause fear. Very solid unit. And they also have an additional 25% missile resistance on top of their 55% missile resist against small arms fire from their shield. So they are very, very good against shooting. Then you have the dual axes Bull Centaurs. So the big difference between the two is they deal significantly better. They perform much better against infantry. They have a much higher charge bonus. They also have a bonus versus infantry of 18, and they also come in with lower melee defense but higher melee attack. They are very good at chopping up elite infantry. They will make an absolute mockery out of most forms of elite infantry, though their armor and melee defense is low enough that they can run into problems against someone that specializes well enough against anti-large and negates charge bonus, like a lot of really elite halberds. But they do have nearly 10k health, and they can pack a wall up. Then you have the Bull Centaur Renders with great weapons, which are functionally the exact same thing, but they have 25 bonus versus large. I have seen these guys chew through Bretonnian Knights like they're an absolute joke. They are very stubborn. They hit like absolute trucks. They will take a lot of damage in kind of a trade-off because they're melee defense and armor, but they will really kick the shit out of a lot of things. The last one, who are absolutely hysterical, I don't know how good they really are, but they're very, very fun, are Hashet's Dark Ravagers. So these are dual axe Bull Centaur Renders, but they have throwing weapons. They throw their dual axes. So they have throwing axes that are the size of most people. And they only have 10 volleys, but these throwing axes deal insanely high armor piercing damage and also have the shield breaker passive. So whatever they throw a volley into it hurts. It hurts a lot. But it is quite short range at only 80. And but the nice thing is once they're out of ammo, you can really just tear anything out. They do have fire while moving, so they can shoot while they're chasing down like an enemy elite cavalry unit. And then they have a couple of unique gimmicks. They have 20% physical resistance on top of their regular resistances. They also have the Guardian passive, so they're great at protecting, running around protecting your characters while throwing axes. And then they have Revel in Fear, which can be very, very powerful if you combo it well. So Revel in Fear is that the more units within 50 meters that have low leadership, So wavering or below, the more bonuses you get to your charge bonus, your melee attack, and your leadership. So if you can really get these guys into the thick of a nasty fight, they will stay in place and just continue to deal more and more and more damage. And they are amazing at chasing down things. Over here, we've got your 2 missile cavalry and chariot units, which are your hobgoblin wolf raiders with bows, which are, as you can see, you know, fire arrows, pretty much the same. Not as good in melee as your as these lads by any extent, but they have shooting attacks to make up for it. And they also do have firewall moving, which is great. And then you've got Oglacon's Wolf Boys. Oglacon's Wolf Boys are very, very solid because they combine both units. So they are very, very solid in melee combat. They're more heavily armored. They have significantly more leadership, better stats, and they're also fantastic archers. In fact, they also have the flammable ability on their shooting attacks. So they combo very, very nicely with your other missile infantry, where they can pepper them with a few arrows to slap them with flammable, and then you follow up with like a fire glaive volley or your other hobgoblins that shoot fire arrows, and it can be very devastating. Furthermore, they have the Pelt of Wulfag, which the Pelt of Wulfag is from the legendary giant wolf steed of the Hobgoblin Lord Genghis Khan, the one and only, the OG, the first great Khan. And it's very spooky. It gives you minus 75% speed within 50 meters on routing or broken units, which basically makes these guys god tier at chasing down fleeing enemies. Then you've got your regular monsters. You've got your Great Taurus. We've already talked extensively about it. Really good fire resistance. Decent missile resistance. A lot of the Chaos Dwarf monsters are pretty good missile resist. Solid enough stat line. Pretty solid. Not super crazy expensive monster. And does come with Blazing Body. Then you have your basic Lammasu. Also comes with his bound spells. Magic attacks. Does still have the Sorcerer's Miasma to negate magic attacks. If that's something you're interested in. It has the same resistances. Also very solid. Not nearly as good in melee, but has more utility. Though a significant amount of his utility is one use only. But he does have a lot more melee defense at 44. Then we have the Kadai. So the Kadai Fireborn, okay armor at 60, pretty decently fast at 54, 32 melee attack with magical and fire damage, 40 melee defense, so they're pretty good at not getting hit against a lot of units. And then they have a plus 20 bonus versus infantry, which is absolutely solid with lots of AP. Also 40 charge bonus, and they have a very nasty charge animation, which I'm sure I'll be showcasing at some point. They have 10% base physical resistance thanks to being demonic, 35% fire resistance. They do have Blazing Body, so they get melee damage reflection and more physical resistance as they fight. And then they have Burning Bright, which is, Burning Bright's, it's all right. So it's if you have above 50% health, you are unbreakable. That being said, you're really not in danger of crumbling if you're above 50% health, so I don't really think it comes into effect that often. But occasionally it does if you get them into like a really bad maneuverable position. They are Hellforged, so you can regenerate them in combat in the game or battle with the Reforged ability, and then they have Demonic Instability and Banish, though those only activate after Bound Fire Demon or Burning Bright goes off. So they're pretty good. They're pretty solid, decent health, and they're very good at chewing through melee units. The last big flying beastie you have is the Baal Taurus, who does have a breath weapon attack and is just overall better than his lesser cousin. He has even higher missile resistance at 25%. He also has Blazing Body, Breathe Fire, better stat line, but is more expensive. Then last, certainly not least, is the mother effin' Kadai Destroyer. Very, very powerful unit. Hits like an absolute truck. 90 armor, over 10k health, 60 speed, 52 melee attack, 34 melee defense. Significant amount of armor piercing damage with 500 versus 180. So he will chew through just about anything, though you do need to protect him. He also has Hellish Frenzy, which is as long as you keep him above 75% health, he has plus 10 melee attack, bumping him up to 62, and also has even higher damage and a higher charge bonus. So when he's at full health, those initial engagements he will do, he will hurt a lot. Then we have the Magma Cannon, which as you can see has the ability to receive the Hellbound upgrade. You don't have to take it, it's totally optional. So Hellbound is that as long as you are above 25% health, you get magical damage, 20% physical resistance, and perfect vigor. Very, very good if you think you're going to be taking shots from an enemy, or you want your like unit to be firing at like the best output possible long term. The lava cannon is very strong. It has a very accurate shot that is difficult to dodge generally because it's very fast. It's got 70 armor and almost 5k health, so it actually is pretty durable. Not super fast, only 20 speed. Weapon strength, it is with the high bonus versus infantry, you can run people over with it. You can put it into melee mode and its little train will run people over. Obviously not what you want to do. It's got plenty of ammo at 25, and it does do the burnt ability, so it does quite a bit of damage and lowers leadership for those it shoots, and of course has fire resistance and Hellforge, so you can regenerate if you wish. You also then have the Iron Demon. So the Iron Demon, you can upgrade it to take a Dreadquake mortar if you would wish. So it adds the mortar on behind it and runs around with it going choo-choo. It also can be hellbound, which is very, very strong on it because it is a melee unit. Well, not strictly melee, but it can be used in melee. It is actually fairly terrifying at 100 armor, 60 speed, very solid damage, pretty high AP at 140 to 60, and an 18 bonus versus infantry. Awesome at shooting through melee. It also has a very nasty shooting attack. It has a 120 range. It's essentially a burst shot. So it's got these two kind of like grape shot cannons on it that fire independently, and they hurt if they blast you in the face. They also deal suppression, so they slow down targets, allowing the train to really like run them over. And it can fire while moving. It's completely unbreakable, causes terror, Hellforged, fire resistance, contempt. It also has more power. More power is a very solid ability. You can pop it every minute and a half, and for about 30 seconds, you are significantly faster at 25%. You have much higher mass, so you can push into and out of melee easy, and you get 200% additional acceleration, which is really, really good when you're trying to make turns or like smash yourself out of a melee combat. These guys are very powerful if you can cycle charge them. Then you can attach a Dreadquake mortar to it, which does make it significantly more expensive, but it adds a Dreadquake mortar. I will say the Dreadquake mortar is very difficult. You can aim it when you have it on Iron Demon, but it can be difficult to aim it at what you want while also keeping it on the move, because the Dreadquake mortar can fire while moving, which makes it very, very nasty, and allows it to really devastate the enemy, and can make it hard for your opponent to figure out where the mortar is going to shoot, because even you don't know. So it can be good in those circumstances, but it's very expensive, and you are sinking a lot of money into a singular target. Beyond that, you have the Hell Cannon. Y'all know what Hell Cannons are. They haven't changed. The Skullcracker is the even better melee version of the Iron Demon. It trades out a little bit more health, and also has the wall breaker ability. It has significantly better animations, in my opinion, for attacking people in front of the train, because it doesn't rely on shooting attacks, so it is able to actually like mow people down easier. But I would not say it is worth the increased price. I think the shooting attack is generally better, unless you're playing on a siege map or you just think it looks cooler. It is very good at shooting through units though. The Death Shrieker rocket. The Death Shrieker rocket is very similar to a High Elf Bolt Thrower. It has two firing modes. You have the Death Shrieker rocket, which fires a single projectile that, when it gets close, explodes into a bunch of other projectiles, and is very good at dealing damage to infantry units and chews through armor like nobody's business. And then you have the Demolition rocket, which fires a single large rocket that vaguely has a little bit of a homing thing to it, so it can be hard to dodge because it does kind of track its opponent a little bit, just like all the other ones. It is on a carriage, so it's not great at melee, but like if some crappy infantry unit comes charging to you, you can switch to melee mode and just run them over. They deal magic and fire damage, very long range at 420, and also pretty solid armor piercing and lots of explosion damage. And then you've got the Soul of Damnation, Regiment of Renown. You do have access to all the different Hell Cannons. So you've got the Soul of Damnation, and you've also got the Iceward Legion in campaign. Then you have the Demon's Tongue, which is the Regiment of Renown spooky train, which instead of like just kind of the regular shotgun blast, it has like a terrifying absolutely horrifying, in your face, gonna blow you to hell gun. It shoots a very, very nasty fire attack that is gonna absolutely ruin your A1 day. And as you can see, it's a significant amount of damage. Can fire while moving, has all the same gimmicks, and also it has just a better stat line overall, and its shooting attack is just way nastier. You can also equip it with a Dreadquake, so that's pretty cool. And then you have the actual Dreadquake mortar. The Dreadquake mortar, I think, is one of the most powerful war machines in the game in single player and multiplayer, because it's a mortar. It's a single target mortar. So it shoots up in the air. It takes a very long time. It's a very bright, shining projectile. So your opponent will see it unless they're just not paying attention. If it hits, it kills just about anything. It's very long range. It has solid armor piercing damage. And it also has the Monstrous impact ability, which is that where it slams into the ground. It's a little unique. It's not like Queen Bess. When it hits the ground, it basically casts a vortex spell, where wherever it hits the ground, it causes a stationary AoE like earthquake that reduces all speed by 60%. That being said, it is very hard to hit people with it in multiplayer. In single player, god tier. In multiplayer, kind of that being said, I honestly think that against non-super elite players, like not your Anticities and your Turins, but you know, against more casual or average players, I do think the Dreadquake mortar will have a place, and it will be absolutely terrifying on a train. Though you do have to be careful when you attach it to a train, because they will absolutely friendly fire your stuff. Like if in the AoE, if in range there is one of your units fighting the enemy unit, it will target that combat. It will hit your guys, and you will die. It's very painful. But that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna go ahead and tack on a replay of me fighting Anticity here at the end, just as kind of fun little bonus and to kick us over an hour. So yeah, we'll go into that. Do let me know what y'all think. Are you excited by the roster? Is there anything that you didn't know about that you're like, oh, this is really cool? Do let me know if anything really jumps out at you. I'm super excited to see what all the multiplayer guys are going to do with all the battles. I would really like to, you know, participate how I can, and I will be recording some battle footage to show you over the coming days until we can start showing campaign, in which case we will live stream until the sun blows up. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the Anticity fight. Bye-bye! Hello everybody, Loremaster Sotek here, and like I told, wait. Hey guys, just like I said, let's go ahead and get into it. So real quick, I'm just going to show you our armies. So I'm bringing Drazhoath the Ashen, and I've got lots of goodies. I got my Hell Shard Inuit, I got my Demon Spite Crucible. I didn't bring the Brazier because I'm up on my mountain. I didn't think I was gonna really get as much use out of it. Also, spell-wise, I only brought the Flames of Asgore and Hellhammer, so you'll get to see those big old nasty spells. I also did bring Gorduz Backstabber with his regeneration ability. I forgot to bring his lucky dice. Which I did end up regretting a little bit, but I did bring his heal. He is though on foot, so he's like super cheap. He's only like 600-700 gold on foot. He's with that one ability, he's very cheap. I've also got 2 units of Hobgoblin Cutthroats, 2 units of Orc Laborers, 3 units of Goblin Laborers, a Kadai Destroyer, because Anticity hadn't seen one yet, and I was like, screw it, I hate myself, I'll go ahead and bring one. Even though I would not usually recommend something this big and strong out of the gate in this mode. And then I have a single unit of Infernal Guard with Fire Glaives. You can see Anticity's bringing King Lewin, a whole bunch of Foot Soldiers, Field Trebuchets, and a unit of Grail Knights. He's also got a lot of backup Knights and a Life Wizard. And then in my backup, I've got the Immortals, 2 units of Centaur Renders with great weapons, a Magma Cannon, a bunch of Hobgoblin Wolf Boys, a unit of Chaos Dwarf Warriors, and Oglacon's Lads. So without further ado, we will hop on into it. I will say, I do not think my army was good. Okay, I think in retrospect, I would have definitely traded out all of the laborers. Because, like, I don't know, I don't think you really need just the mass numbers when they're as bad as they are. They like to break and run immediately. But I also will say this was my first battle. And Enticity, I believe, had played a fair little bit against the Chaos Dwarfs. So I think he kind of knew a little what to expect. And all those foot squires, like, oh man. So here we'll kind of slow things down a little bit. So here you can see old Drazhoath himself looking absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to see him. The Cinder Breath looks incredible with just the molten effect, and you got the little like dead goblins hanging in the cage. The wings are huge on these creatures, but he's got like the tail blade and the big spooky horns, and Cinder Breath is just super badass. I've also got the lad, the king, the destroyer. And I played very terribly with him. I'll go ahead and spoil you. So you can see he's just made out of molten lava. One of the best looking fire elementals ever. He's oozing lava from like the terrifying faceplate. He's covered in dark tongue runes. Meanwhile, I've got my various laborers making a front line to come die for me and just try and slow the Bretonnians down. So I've got orc laborers, goblin laborers, just because I wanted to take enough space. We do have Gorduz Backstabber here. You can see he's quite a bit larger, taller than regular Goblos, despite his hunched posture. But he looks amazing. Like, he's got that terrifying, freaky-ass smile. Really cool little axe. I love all the, like, little bone spikes coming out of him. Very cool character. And then over here are my cutthroats. So I am wearing the colors of... oh gosh, I don't even know what faction I'm playing. I think I'm playing Astragoth's faction, but I might be playing Drazhoath. I'm not 100% sure, but I really like the deep reds. And you see the hobgoblins are a bit taller than regular goblins. They're almost as tall as the orcs. They got those, they're much more athletic looking. Somewhere else on the battlefield, here they are. The elite boys. So we've got the Infernal Guard, which I have heard are absolutely nightmarish to fight in multiplayer. If you need to bring something that apparently can take them out from a very long distance, which is why Enticity brought a ton of trebuchets, because if he had allowed me to get close enough without the trebuchets at full health, probably would have been a bad time. I did go ahead and summon a unit of Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. So you can see these here. These have amazing wolf models. They're so much cooler than the regular greenskin giant wolves, because they've got these just sick armored helmets on top of like the little little plate armor things around the saddle. And the hobgoblins look incredible from the Hobgoblin Khanate. Even if they end up just being a minor faction, you know, where we only get like 1 or 2 legendary lords, like just one would be fine. I would love so much to get the Hobgoblin Khanate, like a whole army of these dudes. But anyway, speeding things up to normal, you can see Lewin was itching for a fight with Drazhoath. I wish I had kind of taken it earlier. I was kind of scared of Lewin. But when you really look here, Lewin's not that much better than me. Like, I actually deal significantly more damage than he does. He has I even have higher melee attack and higher melee defense. Like, my stats are just better than his, other than he has more armor than I do, and he regenerates. Which, you know, obviously the regeneration's a bit of a problem. And his items make him very, 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 very good. So, like, he could outlast me in a fight, sure. But I wish I had taken it sooner and then allowed my units to kind of approach more aggressively. But I've got Knights Errant running around and Grail Knights causing problems. I've started shooting fire arrows. You can see over here the Grail, or the Field Trebuchet is firing at me, so I decide to back up because I don't want to deal with that. I also summoned my Lava Cannon onto the field, which is chugging along, or sorry, my Magma Cannon. It's a badass weapon. It also has a very nice long range, and it's very good against just about anything in the game. So here, Lewin is about to come throw down with me. I notice him a little late and decide that, no, thank you. I kind of wish I'd stayed in. I have very good melee damage reflection, and it would just build up over time. but I decide that because Enticity has siege machines, I don't want to wait. And this is where I messed up. I should have engaged Lewin and stayed on Lewin. Instead, I was like, oh, well, I'll just send the destroyer in and it'll be fine. And Enticity just went all in on my destroyer. But we can at least enjoy some of its animations for a moment. So I'm trying to get it to charge. So yes, those are retractable blades. And now I use the Flames of Osgore. This deals a lot of damage. I kind of only like hit with half of the shots, but it deals a ton of damage. It's so cool. This is like easily one of the most badass creatures in the game now. Like, this thing is beautiful. So you can see, if you pay attention, you can kind of see little like effects going off whenever fire attacks hit. You see little bursts of flame indicating that, hey, that's fire damage. If you see little blue sparks, that's, hey, that's magic damage. So I'm trying to get out, but Enticity did a good job surrounding me. So my Kadai can't really get away. And because I'm below 50% health, I am now crumbling. I have managed to hurt Lewin really, really bad, so it's not like it was all in vain. I did get a significant amount of damage in on King Lewin in exchange for this. You can see the magma cannon is firing in. Unfortunately, I missed that shot. But I am trying to bully Lewin, but the Kadai, he's getting work done. He's doing things. I misplayed terribly with him, and he roars and is like, how could you fail me, father? How could you do this? Oh yeah, you can see it literally vomits fireballs as a melee attack, which is very cool. So we're just kind of, how long till this thing dies? Because I want to catch the death animation. All right, we'll kind of we'll just kind of follow him for a minute. So you can see there's shenanigans going on across the battlefield. I'm about to unleash another Flames of Osgore, which you can see blowing up all over the place there and murdering a lot of those foot guys. Unfortunately, Inticity's good at this game and was able to dodge a lot of the effects because he's a spoil sport. But a lot of my army is being torn apart. You can see these guys are going to fight Big Daggy, and it's so good against infantry. He just sends everybody flying everywhere. It's easily my favorite model of the new Chaos Dwarfs. Oh, a couple of explosions. Kaboom, 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 kaboom. And boom. So you can see the fire spirit dies and it just becomes an empty suit of armor. Very cool. Anyway, back over to Drazhoath. So you can see really nice shot from the magma cannon. Just nailed Lewin in midair. I am realizing that I don't want to be here. But luckily, my blazing body is going up every moment that he's chasing me. So a heal goes off there. I do run in my cavalry unit to give me a bit of time. Explosions are still going off. I do not want to fight Lewin, especially when he has all of his buffs going, so I get up into the air. He is faster than me, though, which is a problem. But it's okay, because I brought reinforcements. So already in this battle, I am falling behind very badly on victory tickets. Once again, I am bad at this game when it comes to multiplayer. I do land, though, and I actually tricked Enticity. So I manually landed myself, and now he is in the midst of my Chaos Dwarf Warriors and Cinder Breath. So now I do decide to fight him. Call in the Bull Centaur Renders, and he's gonna pay now. He's gonna pay. He does get off a very nice Dwellers Below. It doesn't, like, it hurt my Chaos Dwarf Warriors a bit, but other than that, it didn't really bother me that much. So we'll just kind of watch our lads shoot. The Bull Centaur Renders hit like trucks. They were just destroying these Knights Errant. Like, they were taking no prisoners. I do have Drazhoath trying to pursue. The lava cannon, seeing as it is is very heavy. It has a lot of mass. The magma cannon is immediately able to retreat to a safer position. And Drazhoath is like, yeah, no, you're not getting away. You're not getting away. So it has some very cool aerial animations using its wings and its horns to like slap people. Very cool. So anyway, as the fight continues, I can't remember if no, I have not summoned them. So you can see at this point, I'm basically screwed. I have no army. All I have is a magma cannon, Drazhoath, my Bull Centaur Renders, and a single unit of Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. Other than that, I don't have an army. Gorduz is dead. Everything is dead. But all hope is not lost. First of all, Drazhoath starts, because Drazhoath has been in combat so much, I have 44% intensity. So I have 5% physical resist, 11 melee damage reflection, plus another 20 melee damage reflection. So every time Lewin swings at me, he's actually hurting himself for a decent tick of damage. And I had a ward save while I was fighting. So I am able to break him and chase off the king. Magma Cannon is getting work done, blasting stuff. Chaos Dwarf Warriors charging into combat. They're pretty heavy lads, unfortunately. You know, those are questing knights, so they've got the AP. Over here, my Bull Centaur renders are basically like just holding the line. They are very, very big boys. So they can go up against many things and will survive just because they have so much health. They have like around 10k health. So they're doing a good job cutting people up. They are slowly but surely dying. Though I did get Lewin off the battlefield, so you do see a bunch of leadership starts breaking everywhere. And the Magma Cannon is getting work done. And then here come the Immortals. So the Immortals have arrived with their twin burning axes, and they make short work of just about everything on this battlefield. Just chewing through these questing knights without a care in the world. Meanwhile, my Magma Cannon is like shooting out blasts of steam to defend itself. Over here, punting that Enchantress. So with the Immortals now present, I immediately actually start pushing this battlefield back, because Enticity doesn't really have anything that's going to stop me. I do have some Wolf Raiders still shooting attacks. Drazhoath is like fully buffed now pretty much, or is very close to it. I'm at 56% intensity. So you can see they are reflecting about 30 to 40 damage at themselves every time they attack me. These questing knights, which eventually they do break and run away. So now the tide has turned. If I could just capture all 3 objectives, I win. My army is significantly stronger now than Anticity's army. He has a lot of units, but they're mostly trash units. Though he does summon a bunch of Grail Guardians on the battlefield, but you know, they're tanky. They're not really gonna survive against Drazhoath, especially if I can get off a big cast on them. I do start running around the battlefield to bully things. I do take the trebuchets offline. I start summoning more units. I'm realizing that the main issue is that he is not that far away from victory, and I do not have very fast units. So I'm trying to summon lots and lots of Wolf Riders to see if I can get to safe places, but my positioning is like super bad once again. I've not played multiplayer in a while. Forgive me, for I have failed. We do see the Grove Guardians coming in here against the Bull Centaur renders. I do break these foot squares pretty much instantly with King Lewin not able to buoy them up. All of my infantry, we've reclaimed this objective. We start making our way for the Bretonnian objective, but unfortunately this is where the Grail Guardians just kind of come slamming into me to lock me down. And my Magma Cannon misses, which should have been an easy shot. And you can see here my micro being not good starts to show. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do here? I can't send Drazhoath to claim that objective, so I need to send him into somewhere else. I've got good spell mastery at this point. If I can land a good spell, I'll deal lots of damage. My blazing body is building up nicely when I'm in melee combat, and Drazhoath is going to be able to chew through these Grail Guardians. So here I get off the money shot. Oh, yes. Oh, very good. Oh, very good. So that was what we really needed. That demolished the Grail Guardians. You can see they're all flammable because of the Oglokhan's Wolf Boy, so that dealt a bunch of bonus damage. Unfortunately, while I am really chewing through them, I'm running out of time, and I don't have fast enough infantry like anywhere to go claim things. I do see this stupid damsel coming from my coming back, so I decide, yeah, we don't need her. But Drazhoath does pretty much devastate 2 units of Grail Guardians by himself, despite being at relatively low health. He has very little issue chewing through them because they rely on physical resistance, and he actually he doesn't have magic damage now I look at it. But nonetheless, he is chewing through them pretty reliably. Orc Laborers come in, help me get the numbers I need to start pushing through. I am desperately trying to get to this stupid objective, but there's just lots and lots of knights in my way who are very heavy, and I am not heavy. I need like way more Bull Centaur renders, or you know, not a Kadai, or I should have used my Kadai much more defensively. You can see knights lost a ton of health there. And yes, it does actually leave behind a pool of lava that deals damage over time. So not only does it hurt you on the initial shot, but then after a few seconds, it continues to deal damage. Beautiful. So that's pretty much it for this battle. Unfortunately, while I did, I believe, start to gain the upper hand at this point, it was far too little, far too late, and I lost to Enticity, which is probably the least surprising thing in the universe. Looking here, you can see that Drazhoath easily made his money's worth coming in for 4,100 gold value damage dealt. I did not use Gorduz very well. He got very isolated, and I was not paying attention. I don't even know when he died, but he kind of got swarmed with all the laborers. The laborers were pretty useless overall. The Kadai did okay, but once again, I horribly mismanaged it and allowed him to get isolated. I should have held him back and just focused him on killing knight units and stayed far away from Lewin. And the Infernal Guard got pretty... Enticity knew to be scared of them and focused pretty heavily on wiping them out. You can see the Immortals were basically never contested. They were virtually unstoppable by the time they showed up on the battlefield, but they were also completely unable to get to where they needed to go. I should have had them in my starting army and the Destroyer in my reinforcements. That probably would have worked a lot better, because the Destroyer would have been a lot faster at getting where I needed him to go, and my army could have used the bolstering of the Immortals. But they did get quite a few kills and decent value once they showed up. Bull Centaur Renders got nearly 2,000 gold value, which is more than they're worth, so they did super duper awesome. Never got to summon the second one. Magma Cannon did insanely good, getting over 2k gold, which is more than it's worth. It performed. It's only 1050 because I had the Perfect Vigor on it, so it performed tremendously well. Wolf Boys did pretty good, almost 1,000. The Warriors did okay, though their value's a little messed up because I resummoned them. And then my Archer lads did. They did. The Raiders did just fine. On Ticity's side, you can see Lewin pretty much got his gold's value because he managed to take out the Kadai and do quite a bit of damage to Drazhoath, though I did manage to kill him. And then a lot of these guys didn't get a lot of value because they were mostly just killing laborers. They very rarely got on high value targets, but the Trebuchets did a good job shutting down my Infernal Guard, which was a bummer. But you can see Anticity's Knights performed extremely well. That very legendary Enticity micro coming in clutch. But anyway, that's going to be the end for this. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all tomorrow, or maybe today, or I don't know. I'll see you around. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.